falling more in love with it? Are you just like, I'm getting used to it now and I'm more focused? What's your take on how you feel about it?
I mean, I definitely still like it and love it a lot. I think it ebbs and flows, kind of just like anything, where you'll have weeks where you feel like uninspired and I haven't like, not being able to write, and then you'll have weeks where like, oh, that was so good, and I don't know. It's all I can say is that it ebbs and flows, and I really like doing it. Right now is probably like the hardest part of the journey in comedy, because you can't just get up on a stage and do 5 minutes to see if it works in front of a crowd. You have to go to an open mic. You do a show once or twice a month.
It's mental comedy exercise. And so you had a break. It's almost like trying to run a race when you hadn't had a few workouts during the week. That's crazy when you think about it. It's the same thing.
One of the first things I said on it was that I really don't like the open mic experience. I say it's awful. I hate it. Something you have to do. And I'm like, it hasn't gotten easier. And that has definitely changed. The funniest part about this is that I have come to love the open mic experience now.
What?
Not like love.
But you appreciate it. Hi, Julie.
Hello.
We're back.
We are back.
It's been a minute, although we've seen each other recently, but it's been a minute for us to be here on the pod together.
Yes, it has been.
So yay. What has been happening?
Well, we had the wedding, so we were home. I was back home for 2 weeks. Me and Steven were there. And then, so we had the wedding, and then I had a comedy show in New York, and then I had a comedy show here, and then you surprised me, and you came here for the comedy show. So it's been a busy month, honestly, because we left for the wedding like a month ago.
And then you're going to another wedding. It's insane.
Everyone decided to get married this year.
It is wedding season. That is for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So let's, we don't have to recap on the wedding because I think a lot of people have seen our social media, probably have felt like they were at the wedding. A lot of my followers feel like they've been on the ride. So it was fun. And then when I surprised you, I do want to say at first I wanted to record an episode before I left so I could say, oh, I'm so upset that I can't come to your comedy show because now I missed the one in New York because we had a wedding. So I couldn't go to that one. And then I was very upset that I was going to miss this one where you were producing, and I was going to do this whole big thing of like a fake out, like, oh, woe is me, I can't come and I'm so upset and blah, blah, blah. And then surprise you. But we didn't record that day because it got to be too chaotic. But so were you surprised?
I was very surprised. I thought it was a package. I didn't think it was Helen.
I was the package.
Yeah. It's a very successful.
So good. I want to just talk about the preempt because we didn't really talk about this and I didn't post anything about this, but I had told only Tom knew and Steven. And I think I told Tommy and Jenna at the last minute because we had seen them. So that's the only people who knew I was coming because I was afraid to even say it to people who wouldn't matter. Like it wouldn't be, they weren't in the mix that they'd be talking to, but I was just so nervous about it. Like I didn't want to tell grandma and grandpa. I didn't want to even mention to Aunt Camille because for some reason I'm like, what if they randomly call you for something? And then, you know, I didn't want it to get screwed up. And plus I feel a little bit superstitious. Like I'm going to screw it up if I start talking about it too much. So I had to keep it to myself. Yeah. Number one, difficult because I talk to you every day. Number two, the day of travel. Okay. First I had to make a reason why I was going to be out of pocket for such a long stretch of time. Purposely did my flight early in the morning, so at least for most of it you'd be sleeping. But then I had to think, why am I off the grid? And then I had to actually be off the grid, so I had to put myself on airplane mode. I had to make sure you knew that I have a mammogram and a sonogram next month, so I'm like, I'll pretend I'm doing that. So I have a mammogram, have a sonogram. I'm not going to be able to talk to you this morning. And I was so stressed out. And then I had to go on airplane mode. Try and function on airplane mode with your main phone. Thank goodness I have a backup phone, but I was like, I can't really take an Uber anywhere because I need my phone for that. The whole thing was so stressful.
Yeah.
Wow. So I was like, I can't. I don't know how people do that often because I have a friend who surprises. Hi, Chris Anderson. She surprises her kids all the time. She shows up at their doorstep, and I can't even imagine. Seemed like it was so much work and anxiety more so than work for me. So I don't know if I could do it anytime soon. It was fun though. It was so
It was
much fun to plot and plan and figure out how it was going to happen, and then secretly text Steven. Then I was nervous you were going to look at his phone and see that I was on his phone. So for anybody who thinks, no biggie, it was a biggie.
It was a big biggie.
It was a big biggie. But the look on your face, I just looked at the video again this morning. I was dying because you're literally, your face just dropped. Your mouth dropped open and you were just staring at me. Have you looked at the video?
Yes, I have. I look so shocked.
Stunned.
That's like,
You look stunned.
yeah.
It
Well, I
was great. And Steven is the best wingman in terms of a surprise because he was not, I knew he wasn't going to accidentally say anything. He was right there with like the logistics. He was right there for the content. We needed that. I got the 2-camera angle, have mine and his seamlessly cut, seamlessly edited. So excited.
He knows you need the content.
He knows. And the thing is, I want to use it as a lesson on how to edit with 2 cameras because I feel like that's a perfect example of how I did a 2-camera shoot and made it like a seamless reaction when I edited it. So that was fun. But okay, let's have a comedy update, Julie, because we have not talked about what your progress has been. People are seeing it because I'm posting about it, and we see that you're performing, and then suddenly you're producing a show. So people might think, my goodness, she went from 0 to producing a show and it was so easy. But I think we should just dive back in. So you listened to the comedy episode from last time, right?
Yeah, the last time we did an episode about it was like October 21st, 2023. So
okay, it's a good amount of time.
9 months ago almost now. And I listened to it this morning, so it was fresh in my head to hear where I was. No, it wasn't October. Okay. It was posted in October, but we filmed it in July because we had banked a bunch of content.
Oh, wow.
We had filmed a bunch of content, filmed a bunch of podcast episodes over the summer, and then we released them in the fall because we were doing this last season. We were doing it in a podcast studio, so we could only do it when we were together, really.
Oh, my gosh.
So we'd film like 6 or 7 episodes at a time.
Wow.
So the episode was from July, but we didn't release it until October. So yeah, almost a full year.
Almost a full year. And that is it's almost when you just started, because May 13th was your date, right? When you first performed and finished your first class. All right. So we are upon a year, and I would like to think about the year in reflection for you, because when someone decides they're going to do something and then they start doing it, sometimes you get lost in the day-to-day working of it and you don't realize how much progress has been made. But now we can look back and say, wow, from a year to now, look at how much performing you've done. Look at all the experience you have, and you produced a show and how that happened. So let's start with what has changed from a year ago. Let's just jump into a big leap.
Okay, so I'm gonna use the first episode, the last comedy podcast episode, as like the benchmark, because one of the first things I said on it was that I really don't like the open mic experience. Steven can also splice these clips in. I say it's awful, I hate it, something you have to do, and I'm like, it hasn't gotten easier. Started to hit open mics.
Okay.
Which is an extremely terrifying experience.
I want to hear about it because I thought it would be the same thing. So I was so surprised to hear from you about
so different.
Okay.
And I've only been to 3 now, so I don't
That's a lot.
I don't have the biggest sample size of what all open mics are, but I went to 2 smaller ones, and then I went to one at the Hollywood Improv. So the 2 smaller ones are very weird. The first one I went to was god awful.
Okay.
Because I forgot everything that I had written. I was trying like 100%, like all new stuff. And the funniest part about this is that I have come to love the open mic experience now.
What?
Not like love.
But you appreciate it.
Love is a strong word, but appreciate. And I think for a few reasons. I've adjusted what you get out of an open mic. So before I thought like, oh, it's to figure out if material works. It's to figure out if a joke will land. And honestly, not really. It's to get comfortable on stage, and it's also really comfortable. It's to help get comfortable in the silence, because I think that's really important. Something that I've learned over the year is you have to get comfortable being uncomfortable on stage, and you have to, I don't know, Kobe has talked to somebody else and it's like, yeah, you need to get comfortable, like absolutely bombing on stage and just being able to keep going and keep your composure.
Oh my gosh. First of all, let's just say Kobe is your comedy friend for people who don't know.
Yes.
'Cause you just
Well, that's what
threw
I was
his
going to get
name.
into. That's another.
Yeah. I know you're going to introduce him.
I'm going to
Yeah,
get
yeah.
there. But
Yes,
yeah.
I know. Just want to mention that because we are going to be talking about Kobe. Will be a part of the topic because he's a pretty important player now in your,
Mm-hmm.
one of the important players in your life. Okay, so now you're okay with open mics, and do you have favorite places that you do the open mics? Do you have?
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
So a big reason that I've come to really like open mics now is because I found a lot of women's only open mics where you actually get the feedback and the support, and I've met a ton of people through there. And then even doing, not women's only open mics are still hit or miss. Like you have a good one, you have a bad one. It's just kind of what it is. But they don't affect me as much, where a year ago I would have done an open mic and got no laughs and been like, oh my God, this is awful. Like I should quit. Whereas now I'm just like, it was a shitty open mic.
Oh, wow. So do you, and I noticed that you go to a lot of them because sometimes I'll be in touch and you'll be like, I'm at an open mic, and I'm thinking, man,
So
the night after your produced show, you were at an open mic, and I thought, wow, didn't you need a rest? And I want to know why did you go that night after that?
Well, because Kobe was hosting an open mic.
Oh, that's nice.
So,
camaraderie, support.
Yeah. The other thing about open mics is I've used it more as an opportunity to get better at writing off the cuff material and writing quickly. I like to go at the end of the open mic hour so I can riff on the material that other comics bring up. And so I had one of my like best open mics last week, the one after the show, because I was like, I'm just going because 3 people I know are going to be there. So it'll be like a more fun vibe. But I didn't feel like doing the material I did the night before. So I went second to last, and I just riffed on everybody the whole time. Basically roasted all the other comics in the room. And it was probably my best open mic performance of the year.
Oh my God. Was any of it written or nothing was written?
I mean, I recorded it, but none of it would make sense out of the context of that open mic. Like none of those jokes would work if those people weren't in that open mic.
Oh my gosh. From my knowledge, who was there besides Kobe?
Gloria and Bo are the only ones you're gonna know.
Okay, that's all. I was just curious, to know the names now. Okay, amazing. That's great insight. And so you have come full circle on open mics. Wow, check.
I still don't
love it.
Like how much you have to do them. Like that's a little annoying, but I get it because you do. Like I definitely feel more comfortable on stage after having gone. Like I'll go to these panels or comedy things and they're like, you should be doing open mics 5 nights a week, like that's what you should be aiming for. I'm like, well, that's kind of aggressive, but
right.
So now I do it like 3, whereas 3 times a week, maybe more. And the last comedy
that's
podcast, I said the last comedy podcast, I was like, oh, I go once a week, and I was like, now I'm like, wow,
that's not a lot, but 3 times a week sounds like a lot to me.
Yeah. And I try and do like, if I do it 3 times a week, I try to do like 2 back to back. Like you stay for an hour, like 2 hours, so that it's getting more for my time investment, so that I don't feel like I necessarily have to go 5 nights a week. Because if I do like 2 or 3 open mics on a Monday, then I feel a little bit better then. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So let me ask you this. How much time commitment is an open mic?
An hour plus.
But an hour there?
An hour there, not factoring in like how long it might take to get there, because sometimes it's like the really fun one that I like to go is like a half-hour drive away, so then it adds time. But there's ones that are like a 15-minute walk away, like a 5-minute drive, so it just depends. Starting to get into more of like a routine of the ones I like to go to. I'm
relating this to like if you go into an exercise routine, you go for an hour and it takes you to and from for an hour, so it's like mental comedy exercise. It's like your mental comedy workout. I love it.
And it does feel weird. When I did the show in New York after the wedding, it felt really weird. I was more nervous than usual, and that's another thing we'll go like on the next one. But because I hadn't done a bunch of open mics that week because I was home, I was like, oh, this feels like I feel kind of like nervous and weird about it in a different way, because I hadn't gone to open mics and like prepared myself. Not even that I'll do the exact set at an open mic, but just to get comfortable.
Because you hadn't worked out in a few days from a week before. Think about it. This is crazy, because that's exactly what it is. It's mental comedy exercise. And so had a break. It's almost like trying to run a race when you hadn't had a few workouts during the week. That's crazy when you think about it. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
My gosh. Oh, I love this analogy.
The next thing I noticed is that in the podcast, I said I was nervous all day and couldn't do anything before a show. And that has definitely changed.
Okay. How?
Like, I get nervous like an hour or two before, and it's not all day.
It's not all day for sure. Well, the day that I came, once the surprise was over, we were out all day, and you really didn't even talk about it until like an hour when you were getting ready. Yeah,
and
like an hour.
The show last week, the one I produced, obviously is like more stressed because I was producing it, so there's a lot more like moving parts. But if it was just a regular show, I don't think I would have gotten nervous till we got to the venue at that point. Honestly,
wow, that's huge
so
progress.
That's really nice. It's really
That's really nice. How are you enjoying it compared to a year ago when you listened to that episode? What do you hear in your voice from then to now? Are you falling more in love with it? Are you just like, I'm getting used to it now and I'm more focused? What's your take on how you feel about it?
I mean, I definitely still like it and love it a lot. I think it ebbs and flows, kind of just like anything, where you'll have weeks where you feel like uninspired and I haven't like not being able to write, and then you'll have weeks where like, oh, that was so good, and I don't know. It's all I can say is that it ebbs and flows, and I really like doing it.
I'm so glad. Do you feel like you're on your path? Do you feel right?
Yeah, I feel like yeah. I don't know. That was the other thing. I didn't want to like make a statement about like what I wanted in comedy a year ago because I was only like 2 months in.
And now do you feel now that you could make a statement? Do you feel clearer about where you're headed?
Yes and no. Like, goal, be a big comedian. How to get there? Like, there's a lot of options. I don't know. It's like, yeah, I joke about having a Netflix special one day, but maybe. So I don't know. I gotta put it out there. But it'd be cool to get paid to do it. Right. I think it's still like the thing where get it to a point where it could be a full-time income, where it's definitely not that or even close to that right now.
Right. But it's hard to relate to that because we don't know anything. It's not like you can apply for a job as a full-time comedian and see what the salaries are. You know what I mean? It's very gray about what that is. And there's comedy writers that work for shows, so that's a way of income, but then they also perform. So there's so many different, it's not
broad.
It's so broad, and nobody's really talking about the details of it to actually know. So you can't learn. This is great for other people, by the way, because you're creating a platform now where you're teaching about it, like just talking about it. And no, you are. I mean, just on this podcast, if anybody was interested, they'd be, oh, now I understand what the first year looks like. They can actually look at your experience, which is great. But I want to talk about how and why you decided you wanted to produce your own show and how that came to pass. Because that, I think, is that's a Juli insight of how you were going to make your experience better. And I love that you didn't say, oh, I have to wait until, I put this in the caption of a video, oh, I have to wait until I'm, this, or I'm better at that, or I know X many people in the industry to do that, or whatever the things are the excuses people make. You did not. You just were like, I want to produce a show. Next thing I know, you have a date, a place, and I'm like, what? I was really surprised by that. So tell me and tell us, what were your thoughts for why you wanted to do that and what made you do it so quickly?
So being like a beginner comic, I'm going to say like a baby comic, because I'm only in my second year. You do a lot of shows that are bringers where you have to bring people to perform, which I've kind of like first hated the idea, and now I kind of get it, because even if you're required to bring 2 people to perform, or you don't have to bring people, regardless of where you're at, you still have to sell tickets. So calling it a bringer versus just, I don't know, that's a whole separate thing that I've adjusted on throughout this year. I don't even know if I mentioned it in the last podcast, but
you mentioned it in one of them, that shows were bringers, because I asked you, because you described what that was. Yeah, and
it feels very pyramid schemey, where it's like you have to bring 3 people to this show to get stage time, which is frustrating, because it's like sometimes people cancel, people flake. But on the other hand, if I end up becoming a big comedian one day, like I have to sell tickets to the rooms that I'm performing in. So whether it's a bringer and 3 people or I have to fill a 300 person room, I still have to sell tickets. So getting into that habit of kind of like knowing that's the game is kind of helpful.
Oh my God. Because even if you're big, like, you know, a big comedian like Seinfeld, you have to sell tickets.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, he doesn't physically go and sell tickets, but he has to be known enough. So he's a personality enough that he has people who want to see him perform. So he does have to sell tickets. That's why these performers and these movies people go on talk shows to talk about to promote so that they can sell tickets. It's all about, you're right. And the big scheme, it's all about selling tickets.
I wanted to produce my own show because after being on a lot of bringers where there was not a lot of attention to like the lineup.
Right.
There's no attention to the quality of the comics. I was on these shows where there's only like 1 or 2 other really funny people and everyone else is like meh. And then it's like a really long show to bring your friends to sit through, and it's annoying. It's like annoying and it's not fun. It doesn't get fun anymore when you're just listening to really bad comics over and over again. So I knew I wanted to produce a show, and I knew I wanted it to be a women's only show because there's honestly not that many women's shows in LA. And there are tons of female comedians, but for some reason we're always less than 20% of the lineup. So or 50%. Like it's really rare. Especially on smaller shows, it's dudes who are just putting their dude friends on it, and it's not funny.
Well, let me just say this too about it, because controlling who is the lineup helps you control who the audience is. And so if the lineup is primed for a certain style of comedy, then you are also stacking your own audience. Yeah. To be receptive of your type of comedy. And I think that's a problem from what I've seen, my limited experience now in going to shows that you're in and having to sit through other comics and go, oh, some of them are like, that's really, really, vile or whatever. And we have to sit through all that, even when we brought Grandma to the one show, I was like, oh, yeah, because sometimes the comics are really, really, a certain style of comedy. And you controlling the lineup changes that for yourself and for all the people involved in that show. Mm-hmm. So, because I don't think enough people give thought to an overarching, not a theme, but an overarching vibe that is going to appeal to a certain style audience. It never even occurred to me until you decided you were producing a show. And I saw the difference with your show versus the other ones that I went to of yours. It was amazing. Mm-hmm. I don't think there's enough. I cannot say enough about how the vibes were so good. Oh, this is like Tommy. The vibes. The vibes were so
good. The vibes.
They were so good. The vibes are good because everybody was there to support. Like the women were supportive of women. There was so many different. It's such a mix of people. It was a diverse lineup, and so therefore there was a diverse audience. And I loved. Gosh, I met so many people that night that I wanted to just like hug up when I left. I want to be, and I'm in touch with a bunch of them on Instagram now.
Of course.
I know. Hi, Sarah. She's just one I want to make. I want her to be a PA on one of my shoots. And I just met her at your show. And she was probably young. Yeah, she's younger than you. She was like 23. And I loved her. Anyway.
She's sweet.
Yeah.
More to come on that.
How did you like producing it? How was the stress versus the performing? Did it disturb you that you were so high stress on the organizing that you couldn't enjoy the performance? What's your take?
I think I just next time need, I'm glad you and Steven were there to help with aspects of it. So I definitely know for the next one, I need just more support for during the show, timing, doing the light. I ended up filming everyone's set for everybody because it was sold out. So there was no room in the back for the comedians to sit and set up their cameras, which was great. But then I also had to film everybody and that was stressing me out. And then my camera died at the end in the middle of the last comics. That was annoying. But yeah, I think what I'm learning, and I've also been going to a lot of comedy panels and events to learn more. And I also think one of the biggest, reasons that I feel I have progressed more in the past year, I'll say the first 4 months of my comedy journey versus the last 8, if we're talking in a year, is at the 4 or 5 month mark is where I met my friends that I write with now and started to actually build a community around comedy versus just like, I'm going to go to an open mic, do my thing and leave. I'm not going to like not that I'm not going to make friends, but you know, it's hard for me to make friends and like put myself out there sometimes. So meetings, I met 3 guys that now I write with, and now I'm going to produce shows with them, kind of helped me. Like, because then we kept each other accountable for a couple months of like writing every week and going to shows. And every panel I go to or everything, every like expert's like, well, it's like networking. It's about the people you know. It's about the people you come up with. So make sure you think the people around you are funny and that they bring good vibes. And that's been really important, I think, which is definitely not talked about a lot.
That's really cool. They are so funny,
yeah,
by the way. And just even hanging out with them was really funny because one of them said, like, hanging out with regular people now that aren't comedy people. That was such a funny statement. I thought that was so funny.
It's really, really true that it is so much more fun to hang out with comedians than I'm going to say, like, civilians. But, like, kind of.
Civilians.
That's what we say when, like, that's what I say if we go to an open mic and like random people off the street come in to watch. I'm like, oh, civilians are here, because it's like, you know, open mics is usually just the 10 other comics.
That's hysterical. I like that.
Yeah,
I feel like I'm a seasoned comedy listener now. I think it's something somewhere between a civilian and a comedian is the person.
It's funny because I would say like all of our plus ones, like our
comedy connoisseurs,
are like the plus ones in my group. It's also a fun vibe. So it's like they are not. I wouldn't consider them civilians.
Right? They're comedy. They're comedy connoisseurs. We're gonna go civil. Yeah. They all start with a C. We have comedians with a C, connoisseurs who are the support team of the comedians who are kind of in it, and then the civilians also a C. So I like that.
And I'm gonna give Steven a major shout out as being the best supporter of comedy, and almost like my comedy coach at times. Like before my New York show, I was getting really nervous, and he is like gave me a really good pep talk right beforehand.
Oh, I love that.
And I know, like, and I appreciate it. And we're always listening to comedy podcasts. He's always listening to comedy podcasts. I'm always listening to them, but like he's also interested in it, and he's always got very good insights about how to adjust jokes. And I think not adding him, but I don't know, having him more involved in my writing process is helpful.
Yeah, well, him as your ghost comedy writer, because he came, everybody in your group was saying he should be a
He's
comedy
the funniest
writer.
one. Everyone's like, he needs to go up on stage and do 5 minutes. It would be done for all of us if he went on stage because he's so funny. But he did have a really good insight a couple of weeks ago, which I think is very appropriate for this episode, where he was saying, we were listening to a comedy podcast with Ray Romano, and Ray Romano was talking about how when he's working on material, he just goes up at the cellar like 3 times a night for a week and gets like,
Ooh.
Oh, hi, Jonathan.
Oh, we have is it emergency?
Yeah.
Okay. Can we pause for a second? Let me go see what's happening. All right. We didn't have to go to the hospital. We we had a little driftwood.
It's okay. Anyway, what I was saying is that Steven was listening to a podcast about Ray Romano and Mike Birbiglia talking about writing jokes, and Ray Romano was saying that if he wants to test out new material, he'll go to the Comedy Cellar and do 3 shows in a night, like every night for like a week. So it's like 2 hours of stage time right there that he just gets to do because he's Ray Romano. So Steven was saying, he was like, you should feel really good about the work you're doing, because right now is probably like the hardest part of the journey in comedy, because you can't just get up on a stage and do 5 minutes to see if it works in front of a crowd. You have to go to an open mic. You do a show once or twice a month. So I thought that was like really interesting perspective to help with my brain, especially when I feel like I'm not making progress. That it's like right now it's very hard to make that progress, especially if you're not performing in front of an audience. And that's the other thing that we talk about a lot, is like, what other art form is so dependent on audience reaction?
Oh my God. Not many things. Because you don't need a back and forth. So if you're a performer, let's say you're playing piano, you're performing and then it's over, applause, and it's over. So it's not like the whole show is dependent on the audience.
Exactly.
Oh my God.
Like a comedy show is so dependent on the audience, where it's like, you can be at like Taylor Swift could perform her concert without an audience. Would it be as like epic, but it would still be the songs and it would still
Right.
count. But you can't exactly tell jokes to nobody, to an empty
Wow.
audience. That's, yeah, isn't that crazy?
That's crazy. There's not a lot of things that are that dependent on me. I mean, I guess if we really think about it, maybe we can come up with a couple, but not a lot.
It's hard to think of something off the top of your head.
Yeah.
Like maybe a magician, like magic, but you could still do magic by yourself.
Yeah, you can. You don't need that feedback. So everything is really, oh my gosh, that's a little mind blowing. Do you think that, do you think you're enjoying it more now because you have more experience? Or it was the innocence making it fun and funny?
I think I'm having more fun now because I'm of a few reasons. I feel like every time I get on stage isn't like, this is it. Like that's not the mentality I have anymore. Because I know there'll be more opportunities, and I know just getting on stage is an accomplishment in itself for me. So
That's great.
I try not to stress about the like maybe I will afterwards, like, oh, it wasn't that good, like, oh, it kind of sucks, but like whatever. Like then I'm like, okay, the next one. I think it's more fun now that I have friends in it that I can do it with and share the journey with, that also have like similar goals. I think it's more fun now because I'm giving myself more freedom in like the things I talk about. I think just this last show, the fact that I have jokes about like dad and grandma, which are two people that I probably would not have joked about a year ago. Now I feel more comfortable like doing that, even if it hurts some feelings.
I know. It's going to be funny because I have to send it to grandma and I'm like, should I prime her for this or just let it rip? I don't know.
But that's the thing. It's like, I think I'm starting to find, I was talking to Steven about this yesterday, starting to find like a groove of that, like, oh, I have gold whenever I tell stories about my family, and I have gold whenever I talk about like my anxiety or like stuff that
Those are what land well.
That's what lands really well. And that's where I'm like finding my groove in like the material. Yes.
And the material, your material is evolving. And do you think a lot of comics do what you do, or do a lot of them perform the same, stay in their same set? What are you noticing? Because you're seeing a lot of shows now. Do you see a lot of comics doing the same sets? Well, we know some people do the exact same set over and over and over at every, which is crazy. But we won't call that out.
Yeah. I think it's a mix from everything that I've gone to. Again, I went to like a bunch of panels. Should always be like writing and trying new material, but the only way like material can become killer is if you keep working it. So what I'm trying to kind of do now is work on my material, write new material, but always trying and revisiting old material to see if I can punch it up or improve it, which is like, we could roll the tape of like my new influencer mom jokes, because those were a part of an old bit. And then I kind of talked about it at an open mic once very randomly. And then it evolved into this new bit where it's like influencer mom 2.0, but the punchlines are better and it's more interesting and it's just better. But I didn't do those jokes for months. And then I brought them back and was like, oh, kind of breathe new life into them.
Oh, I love that. And you know, I like being a part of it. No, you can make fun of me all the live long day.
Yeah.
It does not
you and
bother
Tommy
me.
Don't mind. It's so funny.
Not at all. Not at all. I don't mind at all. And I think it's funny because I think Tommy and I both really like to laugh at ourselves, and we're okay making fun of ourselves for the things that we know are crazy about us.
Yeah.
So not everybody likes to make fun of themselves or be made fun of.
This is making me more excited about it. I feel like the past 2 weeks I've been more stressed about the producing side of it, just because it was the first show. And I don't really want to do the next one until like August, because I want to have time to like, well, I'm producing a show in June, but I want to have time to like write and kind of not get back. But the producing side of it does take a lot of effort and energy. So I want to make sure that I still have time for the thing. Also, sorry. Another thing that I heard on the podcast that I said a year ago was that 2 things. Other people don't do social media, and the fact that I don't want to be known as a TikTok comedian. I don't want to do skits, bits, or sketches. Okay. Other people still don't do social media, and Kobe, my friend, is really good at networking, and he will talk to industry people, and they all say, you need to be posting on social media consistently, which is very validating. But also, they're like, it doesn't one person recently said, doesn't matter if it's your stand-up that goes viral or you get followers from your stand-up. Like if you do skits and that gets you views, if you do like funny thoughts and that gets you, like whatever it is, it doesn't necessarily have to be you on stage performing, like a clip of you performing to go viral.
Right.
And I think it's interesting how a year ago I was like, I don't want to do bits and I don't want to do skits. And these past 2 weeks I've been trying to think of like, what kind of bits and skits can I do? Because that now seems more fun to me.
Good. This is good. Good evolution. So much learning.
Yeah.
What do you, I don't want, maybe I should save this question for last, but we're getting towards the end anyway.
Yeah,
so I just want,
so
what do you wish you knew a year ago? Like what's something that might have helped you to know a year ago?
I feel like when I first started, a few things, to make friends that are other comedians, and I think that would have been more help. That is just more helpful, just to have a community around it. And the second thing is like to go to women's open mics.
Oh my God.
Because I think things really turned for the better for me earlier this year when I started going to the women open mics. Not only, like I scattered them in.
Yeah. So my thing on hearing you say that, number one, I think it had to happen in the timeline that it did. I know that you could think, oh, I wish I made friends sooner, but they might have not been the right friends if you'd done it sooner.
Yeah.
You might have forced that card versus let it happen, and these are maybe the right people that you ended up with. So that's number one. And number two, I know that you're saying table the production thing, but controlling, I'm a big fan of not being controlling, because I'm not a controlling person at all when it comes to like things. I like to be in control of the things that I can be in control of, and then I let life happen to the things that I can't. But I love when it's a production where I can control who I'm working with, because then I know I've got the right people by my side. I don't always like to be thrown into something where I'm forced into working with a bunch of people, and I wouldn't have handpicked them. They don't have the same kind of karma as me, the same kind of work ethic, or the same kind of happy vibes. So for you, I do think the producing thing, it's quick for you, and it's
really easy. Yeah.
It also is you have that higher insight as to what's going to work. A lot of people don't have that. They only know what's going to work for them. They can't see big picture. And I think that's something you need to lean into. I want to talk about the money part of it. Do you think there's money in producing these shows? Do you think that would be worth doing for monetary reasons?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I think there's money in it. I think, like this past show, I did it where if like comedians brought more than 2 people, they would get paid. I would probably raise that for the next one and make it like you have to bring a higher number to get paid out.
And now you can see why that is a plan for what people do for these shows, right? There's a reason for that. I can see
why people don't necessarily do that too, because it's a lot of work to like wrangle and communicate with everybody. So I think there is like money to be made if I can just figure out how to like streamline the process better, or even find, like I like the venue that I'm doing it at, but there are some things that I wish it had that doesn't have. So maybe trying to find other places that have those amenities that would make it a little bit easier to do some things like having more of a filming setup or room for a photographer. Whereas like there's always a lot of room for that kind of stuff at this one. But yeah, I'm definitely going to keep producing. I also just know the reason I don't want to do another shows till August, because I know we have freaking 2 weddings and a trip to LBI for 4th of July. Like, I just don't physically have the time to, like, I don't want to add it and then be stressed, because the only time I'd be able to do it is, like, the week we get back from something or the week before something, and I don't really want to add that stress to, like,
yeah, that's going to be a lot. It's going to be busy. And then plus we're sailing in September, so you might have to wait till October.
After the sailing trip, I'll be able to, like, do more producing and make it more consistent, because I won't be gone every freaking 2 weeks.
And so, you know what I love about you producing? Oh my gosh, because it gives you an upper hand in the scene. Yeah, you are able to, now you have people applying, and you get to say, oh, who do I want to curate for this, and who's the right vibe for this, and that to me adds value to you as a comedian. So it's not just your performance, it's also your style for and your knack for putting a show together. That's huge. And this is why I was not going to miss this. And I couldn't tell you that I was not going to miss it, but it was killing me. I wanted to tell you I'm going to come.
I know.
Because I just think it's a huge step for you that is potentially game changing moving forward.
I agree.
I agree too.
Excited to see what happens in the next year now.
Me too. I'm really pumped.
I'll do a few predictions. You can also do a prediction.
Oh, okay.
My predictions are I'm gonna obviously produce more women's shows, and I'm gonna blow up on social media. Those are things, maybe I'm not like predictions, but manifesting things. I want to freaking actually post on my social media consistently in a comedic way, and I want to produce on a monthly basis and make it like a brand and make it a brand. You know, I would love to do the women's show in New York City, and what if I took it on the road and did other things with it? Like, there's a lot of potential, and I'm excited to see where it goes.
I love it. I want to just end on your manifesting, not me manifesting.
Okay, fine.
I'm so excited. I'll tell you, I'll add something that I would love to see happen just for funsies, and that is that we can combine a comedy and a workshop so that you and I could take a little fun thing on the road. So where I have to do a social media workshop, and then you can do a bit about comedy on social media. I would love that.
I will say that I've always said, if I had known you were coming, I would have written a cold open for you to perform as like at the show, because I also thought putting your name next to it would add credibility and people would come. So next time, if you want to come, don't surprise me, although I loved it, so that we can market it.
I would do that in a minute. I don't want to. Here's my thing. I want to make sure of this is your thing, and whatever way I can support you in it.
Yeah, you and your 1 million followers can support me.
All right, but okay, that's a good point. But I just want to make sure, because in life, a lot of times when you're doing something, in my experience, is sometimes someone might overshadow the thing that you're trying to do. And I would never want to do that for you. So I want to make that clear here and now, that if you think that's going to help and work, and I am all for it, I would do whatever you needed. I just want to make sure that I don't want it to become like anything about me. But if it can help you get an audience there, fine, let's do it. I would do it in a minute, because I would probably bomb. And then I'd have that under my...
I guess I would have open mics. I'd be like, go to this open mic and read this set.
As long as you write it, because I really don't have a clue. You're a good writer. I think maybe also you should have a plan to write some kind of a book, some kind of a funny book about insights about whatever it is, your childhood insights or something. We'll talk about that, and maybe that's year 3 or 4. I'm excited to see where we're headed, Julie. I am so here for this. I'm so behind what's happening. I love that it's something that I know nothing about. And it's not like, oh, it's similar, it's aligned in production. It's actually not. It's a completely different thing. So it's a learning experience for me too. So I'm happy to watch it explode. Yay.
Me too.
Yours truly,
Helen and Julie.
This was so much fun, Julie. Thank you for being here.
So fun.
And thank you, everybody, for listening. Leave us a review. We haven't asked for a review in quite some time. But if you're on one of the podcasts where you can leave a review, please do that, because it will help us. It will hopefully help us get seen more. And maybe it'll help Julie get more followers on her social media. So the whole goal for this year is her growing on social. So pass along her handle at Juli Polisi, JuliPolise. I am doing as much as I can to tag you in my videos for my audience. I'm sure you've noticed I'm doing a lot of like reposting, push your content out. The more you make fun of me, the better, because then I can use it to push to my audience and then they know you. So do it. You go for it. And you know where to find us on social media. So Julie is there, and I'm at the mothership with you. And if you landed here by chance, we do have a platform that we do together where we teach and we share content trends. We have a newsletter. We have a social media podcast, and that can all be found at hellosocialize.com, where you can find our workshops and such. But everybody probably already knows that. So we'll leave you with that, and we'll see you next week. I don't know what our topic's going to be next week. We have to talk about it. But it's so good to be back, and thanks for hanging in for the last couple of weeks when we've been jetting about at weddings and comedy shows back and forth across the coast. And we'll see you soon. Bye, Julie.
Bye.
Bye.